Okay, this video we're going to be talking about transforming cubic functions, exponential functions, and also hyperbola functions, or rationals. Okay, so cubic functions are my x cubes. They're similar to the cube roots, so it's still 1, 7, 19, but this is going to be up, so it's our little s turned sideways. Okay, and then we still get our normal hk. Okay, so we flip the h when we take it out or put it in, and it's inside parentheses with my x. Okay, so our origin one is going to be 0, 0 again. Okay, so these ones are moving up 1, 7, 19. So it's going to be similar to the parabola that we did. So right one up 1, right one up 7. There's going to be the one side, then I follow suit with the other one. So left 1, down 1, left 1, down 7. Okay, because we got to get that sideways S. So instead of going and mirroring with your parabola, you have to go the opposite direction. So there's my original x cubed graph. This is going to reflect it over that x-axis, so it's going to do a little flip. So this will become a -1, -7, -19. So I still start at 0, 0. Okay, but this one's going to go left 1, up 1, left 1, up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's the one side. Now I got to get the other side. So right 1, down 1, right 1, down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, this tells me it's going to move up 2, so it's still 0 for my h, but now my k is 2, so my s curve is going to start at 0, 2. So I still go right 1, up 1, right 1, up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Then I'm still going to go left 1, down 1, left 1, down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So there's my cubic shifted up. Okay, so this one's going to shift right 3. So remember, when I pull that 3 out from my h, it becomes positive, and there's no number on the outside, so my k is 0. So right 3, 0. I don't have anything sitting in front, so I can go right 1, up 1, right 1, up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then left 1, down 1, left 1, down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 to get my skinny s. Okay, my next one, it's going to be a reflection, and my points are going to get farther out. Okay, so my origin, or where my s curve is going to happen, my hk is at 0, 0. My 1, 7, 19 is going to be multiplied by -2. Okay, so it becomes -2, -14, and -38. So that one's not going to fit on the graph. Okay. So I'm going to go left 1, up 2. Left 1, up 14 is going to be way up here. Okay, because you got to reflect. So it's got to be the opposite of your normal S. So now I go right 1, down 2, right 1, down 14, which is going to be off my graph. And that 2 tells me it stretches, so my points get farther and farther apart. So you can kind of see how I don't even fit them on my graph because it's stretching so much. Okay, my next one here, we flip that 1, becomes negative. So I got -1, -6. So left 1, down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's nothing in front to multiply by, so I got my normal 1, 7, 19. So right 1, up 1, right 1, up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then left 1, down 1, left 1, down 7. So that's going to fall off my graph. So my S kind of looks like that, shifted left 1, down 6. Okay, so describing the transformations, if it sits on the outside, the +4 is going to go up 4. This is going to go down 1. This tells me left 7 because it's sitting on the inside, and that's going to be a reflection over x. We got an up 10. Right 1 because it's opposite of what you think, and then we have a vertical stretch. My points will get farther and farther apart. Okay, my next one, we got rational hyperbolas. Okay, so my original, we got y equals 1 over x minus h plus k. All right, this one's a little weird because these are going to actually have asymptotes. So your h and k's are going to represent those asymptotes. They're going to make up the point of your x value asymptote and your y value asymptote. Okay, so you still got your hk. We're going to use that to do our asymptotes. Okay, so if I look down here, there's nothing down here for your h, and then there's nothing out on your outside for your k, so we got 0, 0. And then I'm going to build my asymptotes off that. So I'm going to go up and down off that dot, and I'm going to go left and right off that dot. Okay, and if I wanted to plug in some values for that, if I plugged in 1, I would get 1 over 1, so 1 divided by 1 would get me 1 here. And since we get closer and closer to asymptotes, it's going to get closer and closer this way, and then it always mirrors across. So my other one would mirror across this way. Okay, so if you plugged in -1, I got 1 over -1. So my point would be -1, -1, which is why it's hitting right there at that -1, -1. So you can plug in a couple points to get that little U shape. Okay, this one's going to be a reflection over the x, so it's still at 0, 0, so I'm going to build my asymptotes in there. And all of them are going to flip the corners that they're in. Okay, so if I plug in, for my x value here, if I plug in 1 to this, I'm going to get -1 over 1, which equals -1. So right 1, down 1. So that just jumped into my other category here. Okay, so that means my other one's going to mirror into the other side. So if I plug in -1 to that, I would have -1 divided by -1, which gets me a +1. So left 1, up 1 is where my other little u is going to be. Okay, this is going to shift my whole hyperbola up 2, because that +2 is sitting on the outside. So my h is still 0. My k is now 2. So if I put a point at 0, 2, that's what I'm going to build my asymptotes off of. So I go my left to right, and then I go my up and down. Okay, so I know what boxes these are going to sit in, so let's go ahead and test a point into it. 2 points. We're going to test 1 and -1. So if I plug 1 in there, 1 divided by 1 gets me 1, plus 2 is 3. If I plug a -1 in there, 1 divided by -1 is -1, plus 2 is 1. So I go out right 1, up 1, 2, 3. So there's my 1. And then I go left 1, up 1. There's my other one. Okay, you want to pick ones that your asymptote won't hit on either. So I can't pick the 0 value because the 0 is in my asymptote here. So you want to make sure you're wary of which ones you kind of pick based on how your asymptote is sitting, but they should be in those quadrants unless there's a reflection. Okay, so this one, it's like it's sitting on the inside, so it's actually going to go right 3. So remember, when I pull that 3 out, it flips. I have no value out here, so it's going to be 0. So I go right 3, 0, and I build my asymptote off of that. Okay, so this time if I pick 1, I'm probably going to be in a certain box here. So I'm going to get an ugly fraction. So if I put 1 in here, I've got 1 minus 3. 1 minus 3 gets me -2, so I got -1/2. Okay, so I go right 1, down 1/2. So my u is going to happen in this box here, and it's going to mirror across the corner. So I want to pick the point that's going to be in that box. Okay, so if I look 1, 2, 3, I want to pick 4 to plug in because I know it's going to be sitting somewhere in here. So we're going to plug 4 in this time for my other one. I ran out of space. So I got 1 over 4 minus 3. Well, 4 minus 3 is 1. 1 divided by 1 is 1. So my point is right 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, up 1. So you can see how that will be in that box right there. Okay, we got 3 over x. That 3 is going to make it stretch. It's just sitting on the top. It's just like 3 times 1 over x. All right, so anytime your x is sitting in the bottom, that's what tells me it's a rational function and not a line. If it sits in the bottom of your fraction, because the reason we get asymptotes down there is when we get zeros down here, because you can't have a zero in the bottom of a fraction. That's why we get these asymptotes. Okay, if you have a graphing calculator, it'll say error or undefined. That's where your asymptote is occurring, because you would get zero in the bottom of your equation and we can't. Okay, so that's why they're rational. So it's still going to be 0, 0, because the h is down there. There's nothing there in my case. It's out here. Okay, so I'm going to build my asymptotes. It would just make these other points farther apart when we go ahead and do this. Okay, so I can plug in. I'm good with my 1 and my -1 because that'll sit in both the left side and the right side. So if I plug in 1, 3 divided by 1 gets me 3. 3 divided by -1 gets me -3. So my points would get farther apart. So I go right one up, 1, 2, 3. Okay, and then I go left one down, 1, 2, 3. So you kind of see that when I did this, my point that normally was right here is a lot farther down because they stretched out a lot farther. So if you were looking at a graphing calculator, you could see those points stretching out farther, or if you put more values in your table, you would see it as well. Okay, we got a reflection. We got a down 5, a stretch 2, and a left 3. So this one's kind of crazy all across the board. So this one we flip to take it out, and that's my k value. So if I go left 3, 1, 2, 3, down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that's where my asymptote happens. And it's going to be a reflection, so they're actually going to be in these boxes this time. So I need to pick values that when I plug them in, they're going to be on the left side and the right side. Okay, so I'm going to plug 1, 2, 3, 4, so -4 in. And let's do -1, 2. How about -2? Because that'll be in there. So -4, if I plug it in there, I would type it in the calculator. It will probably be a lot easier than having to do the mental math, because -4 plus 3 is -1. -2 divided by -1 is 2. 2 minus 5 gets me -3, or just type it in the calculator using the fraction button and parentheses if you're using the blue calculators. Okay, if I plug in -2 into there, -2 plus 3 is 1. -2 divided by 1 is -2, minus 5 is -7. So I have to go for my first one left, 1, 2, 3, 4, down 1, 2, 3, and then the other one is left, 1, 2, down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so we have an up one, opposite of what you think, so left, and then this is going to be your reflection over your x. Okay, we got another reflect over x. This one's right 8 because it's opposite of what you think, down 10, and we have a stretch of 2. That number sitting on top means it's being multiplied. Okay, we got an up 9 and a left 3. That 1 isn't going to stretch or compress, because if you multiply something times 1, it's going to be itself. Okay, my last one is my exponential equations. So I got y equals 2 to the x minus h plus k. So my hk is a little weird in this, so it's up in the exponent with it, and my k still sits on the outside. And this k is actually going to be the asymptote that you're going to build off of. Okay, and then you're going to be able to find your x-intercept in these as well. Okay, so my first one here, there is no k, so my asymptote is going to be 0. Okay, and then my h is also 0. If I plug in 0 to this, that would get me where it crosses on my y-axis. So if I do y equals 2 to the 0, anything to the 0 power is 1. So it's going to be starting at 0, 1. Okay, then it's going to get closer and closer to this asymptote, and then it's actually going to shoot up. Exponentials, we talk about a lot of times with money. Okay, so if I do my xy here and plug in to find out where it's going up to, 1, 2, and 3, we can kind of see where it shoots off to. So my first one, if I plug 1 in, 2 to the first power is going to be 2. So I go right 1 up 2. My next one, if I plug 2 in there, 2 to the second power gets me, oh wait, let's put 2 to the second power gets me 4. If I plug 3 in there, 2 to the third power gets me 8. So my next one is right 2 up 1, 2, 3, 4. And my next one is up right 3 up 8. So there is my original exponential. Okay, then we got a reflection that's going to occur, so it's just going to mirror off that x-axis and look the same way. So it's going to cross at 0, -1. It's going to get closer and closer to 0 on this side, and then we're just going to flip all those values. Okay, so it's going to go right 1 down 2. It's going to go right 2 down 1, 2, 3, 4. And then right 3 down 8. So you got that mirror occurring. Okay, my next one, my k value is still 0, so my asymptote's still going to be at 0. Okay, but it's going to be shifted right 1 in this one. Okay, because my left or right is still up with that x. That 4 is the base. It is not the stretch or compress. It is the base that builds that kind of U shape. It is not the stretch of 4. There has to be a number that sits in front of it for it to be a stretch or compress. Okay, so if we did this one, to figure out where it's crossing your x-axis, we're going to go ahead and plug in 0. So if I plug 0 in there, I get 4 to the 0 minus 1. Okay, 0 minus 1 gets me -1. And that is 1/4 or 0.25. So it's crossing at 0.25. If I continue my xy here and plug in 1, 2, and 3, if I plug 1 in there, 1 minus 1 gets me 0. So 4 to the 0 gets me 1. Okay, if I plug 2 in there, 2 minus 1 gets me 1. 4 to the 1 gets me 4. Plug in 3, 3 minus 1 gets me 2. And then 4 to the second gets me 16. So I go right 1 up 1. I go right 2 up 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I would go right 3 up 16, but he's going to go off my graph. So it gets closer and closer to 0. And then my exponential shoots up. Okay, my next one here. Again, this is not a stretch or compress. It's part of its base. I know it will move up 3, so my asymptote is that k value, so it's up 3. We're going to plug in 0 to figure out where it's going to cross that y-axis. So if I do my xy here, we're going to do 0, 1, 2, and maybe 3. These ones you're going to have to type into your calculator once I get past 0. So, because anything to the 0 power gets me 1 right there. So 1 plus 3 gets me 4. When I put 1 in there, 0.5 to the first power gets me 0.5. Plus 3 is going to be 3.5. But then my next set I'm going to have to put into my calculator. So you can use the caret button if you want. So I'm going to type in 0.5 to the second plus 3. I get 3.25. And then 0.5 to the third plus 3 gets me 3.125. So it's crossing at 0, 4, so 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Gets closer and closer to 0. And then I go right 1 up 3.5. Okay, and actually this one's a little bit different. If you look just based on this, we're not getting closer and closer to 0 on the left side. Woo. Okay, and the reason for that is because this number is smaller than 1, it's actually going to be a decreasing one. So that it's going to get closer and closer to 0 on the other side, and you can tell just based on those points that I did. Okay, so I've still got my 0, 4, but then I got 1, 3.5, 1, it's getting closer and closer to 3 this way. if I check with my -1, if I put -1 in there, so 0.5 to the -1 plus 3, it gets me 5. So I go left one up, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you can see that it's going the other way. So if I look back at these ones, all of those bases were bigger than 1. Okay, so that's why it's increasing up to the right. Because that base is smaller than 1, it's going to be a decreasing, and you can tell based on your table. Okay, my next one, my base is bigger than 3, so it's going to be an increasing one. I know my asymptote's going to be at -7, so let's go ahead and do that. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Let's go ahead and figure out it is going to stretch to. That's what I mean by multiplying in front. So my points will get farther apart on this one. Okay. So let's figure out where it crosses my x-axis. So we're going to go ahead and plug in 0. So if I plug 0 into all that, I've got 2 times 3 to the 0 minus 7. I got -5. So that's where it's crossing my x-axis. So 0, -5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, because that base is bigger than 1, I know it's going to get closer and closer to 0 on this side because it's going to be an increasing exponential. Let's go ahead and plug in 1, 2, and 3 so we can figure out the rest. So 2 times 3 to the first minus 7. I get -1. I've got 2 times 3 to the second minus 7. I've got 11. And then 2 times 3 to the third minus 7 is 47. So I'm not going to be able to do that one. So I got right 1, down 1, and then I got right 2 up 11 is going to be way up here because that 2 is stretching all my points. That was terrible. Stretching all my points farther and farther apart. Okay, my next one, we have a reflection. We have a left 3, and we have an up 4. So let's do my asymptote at 4 first. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So my u, since there's a reflection, it's actually going to be somewhere down here. That base is 2, so I know it's going to get closer and closer to this side here. Let's go ahead and figure out where it's crossing my x-axis. So if I plug 0 in there, make sure when you do it in this time you use parentheses if you don't get prompted for that. Okay, so I'm going to do -2, my caret button, parenthesis, 0 plus 3, end my parenthesis, plus 4. So 0, -4. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. If I plugged in some x values, you would see that it would get closer and closer this way. Let's go ahead and plug in some other y values here. So let's go ahead and do 1, 2, 3. So again, make sure when you type it in you use parentheses, or you can use your table button on your calculator. So my 1 is going to be -12. My 2 is going to be -28. So this one's going to be kind of hard. So I would go right 1, down 12. So my points are getting super stretched out because of the shifting here. Okay, my last ones. Okay, 2 is the base. So this is my up 9. This is my left 4. My asymptote would be at 9. Okay, we got a reflection over the x, and we have a down 3. We have a stretch 4, so my points would get farther apart, and then we have an up 6, which also means my asymptote would be at 6 for that one, and my asymptote would be at -3 for that one.